the country's focus remains locked in on Parliament Hill following a tumultuous day for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Liberal Party. Trudeau held a caucus meeting to address the chaotic events and provide some insight into how the PM interacts with his team. Is former Liberal MP Celina Caesar-Chavannes joining us now. Thank you so much for being here with us, Celina. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk about this letter that Chrystia Freeland sent out into the world, sent many folks here shocked. Your reaction, your initial reaction was, wow, masterful. Two words, it said it all. Reflecting 24 hours later now, more than 24 hours later now, what are your thoughts about what's transpired?
So there are a couple of things. So it was a masterful letter. She was very clear with Canadians about just the undertones of why she was leaving, why she decided to leave that post, and some of the gimmicks that were happening that I later elaborated on Twitter, on X, that have been happening since 2015. But I think although that was a masterful letter, I did think that in reflection of the 24 hours, we are going to see a lot more of the rhetoric ramp up against her, which is typical. It typically happens when women stand up, when they're strong, when they're independent, when they say things that go against the grain. You're going to have that backlash. But I think what Canadians need to recognize is that there is going to be a ripple effect of all of the happenings that are taking place in Ottawa. The ripple effect, and to Pierre Poilievre's point, is going to be that Canadians are going to be impacted the most, and it's going to be the most vulnerable Canadians that are going to have a harder time in the grocery. You're going to have a harder time finding housing, going to have a harder time at the gas pumps, going to have a harder time doing a lot of things. So you're going to see that although the rhetoric is going to ramp up, Canadians are going to be paying a lot of attention to the economic impact of what happened as a result of yesterday's letter being posted by Chrystia Freeland and her stepping down from cabinet.
And you're speaking from, I should know, a place of experience here. You've been in a situation of planning your own departure, of having to coordinate and discuss with the Prime Minister in his office. You've had your own disagreements with the Prime Minister here. If I can just delve into your past experience here and applying it to this current situation here, what do you think is happening behind the scenes with the Prime Minister and his office? Because the public has yet to hear from him or speak to the public directly. We've not heard him do that just yet.
And that's very unusual for the Prime Minister to not come out and say something. We are going into the 24 hours past this event imploding or exploding. But from my past experience, I could say that this is very deja vu. This is very much reminiscent of 2019, not just with me, but with Jody Wilson-Raybould having to be demoted in order to make something that the Prime Minister wanted to happen or not happen. And so it feels very much deja vu. And what I think that Canadians really want to pay attention to in this legacy that the Prime Minister has in terms of when he's being challenged, demoting these women and then having a really explosive sort of exit, is the ripple effects that this has on a stability, a time when we need a lot of stability. We are on the eve of the election of Trump. We are on the eve of a 25% tariff placed on Canadian goods. We are on the eve of a president saying that he wants to ensure our borders are secure, that we are not having drugs flowing through the borders or human trafficking. How do we instill that confidence in a new administration when the center of our democracy is imploding? And so I think that there's a lot more at stake in this particular context than there was in 2019. In 2019, things happened, but there wasn't that ripple effect. Right now, Canadians really need to be paying attention to the long-term impact of what is happening within Ottawa right now.
Do you think the Prime Minister can survive this?
The Prime Minister has survived a lot, and so I'm very hesitant to make the prediction as to whether or not he would survive it. What I would hope that he would do, and And I think I need to be very intentional about saying that the trip to Mar-a-Lago, Chrystia Freeland didn't go. Uh, Dominic LeBlanc was there. Dominic LeBlanc is now the Minister of Finance. We need to be paying very close attention to this and the moves that have been made, and whether or not Justin Trudeau is thinking that this was a calculated move. He knew that the backlash was going to come when Chrystia Freeland would have resigned after he told her he didn't want her to be finance minister. I think some of this was calculated. I think that's why she was not invited to Mar-a-Lago. And I think based on that, the prime minister might say that he's the best person to deal with Trump. There may have been conversations during that dinner that we would have no access to. And so him stepping down is still a big question mark. But I do think that it gives him the reaction from Canadians might give him a lot of pause for reflection. The tweet from Trump last evening does not help, or probably does help his cause, and probably does help him thinking that he could stay and possibly be the best to navigate a new Trump administration. I don't know, but I hope that it does give him pause and cause for reflection, a little bit of self-awareness and reflection on what has happened and the impact it has to Canadians, especially the most vulnerable.
You're alluding to the audience, pay attention to what's happening when it's happening. So I'd like to ask you about this time frame here of Chrystia Freeland's letter, where she says that on Friday she was told by the Prime Minister that he no longer wanted her to be his finance minister. And just days before this economic statement is supposed to come out, and just hours prior to her delivering, she puts this letter out. So how do you process the timing of it?
Oh, the timing is very interesting. Again, if you go back a few steps to the dinner at Mar-a-Lago, she's not invited. That feels strangely familiar to me, but we won't get into that. The dinner at Mar-a-Lago happened. She's not invited. You go a few steps further. He's talking about being a feminist last week, really setting up the stage for possibly what might come to play, because that video went sort of, everybody was talking about it. And then you have him telling her on a Friday afternoon, hey, you know what? Maybe you're not going to be finance minister anymore. Here we have Monday, a seismic sort of letter comes out by Chrystia Freeland. I believe in terms of its placement in its sort of continuum, this is really about saying, let's get this messiness out before Christmas. Let people sort of forget about it before January. And if I'm thinking the way I think that Trudeau is playing this out in his head, he is hoping that come January, come New Year, people have forgotten about this messy situation. He again realigns himself as being the best or the most competent, if I could use Pierre Pellever's words, the most competent to handle Trump, a new Trump administration, and sets himself up that way. That's the way I'm sort of thinking about it. I'm not sure if it's actually how it's going to play out, but just based on the timing and sort of the players that were there, especially Dominic LeBlanc being in Florida, it just smells like it was predetermined, and that we're just seeing it play out like puppets watching a play.
Celina, real quickly, because we do have to wrap up with you. Have you spoken with Chrystia Freeland or any other Liberal MPs?
I have not. I sent Chrystia a note last night, just letting her know that I see her. I'm proud of her. I would do that again for any woman who is going through something like this, where she's literally being thrown under the bus for challenging. And I think I'd want Canadians to know, especially young individuals who are thinking about running or are thinking about being in situations where they need to stand up for yourself. You have to stand up for yourself when the moment counts. And that's what Chrystia did. And I had to tell her that I was proud of her for that action.
All right, Celina Caesar-Chavannes, we appreciate your insight. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.